You want to give me a present? Get out of my life." The words hung in the air of the elegant Pinehurst Country Club dining room, sharp as broken glass and twice as cutting. For a moment, everything around me seemed to freeze. The waitstaff mid-pour with bottles of champagne, the wedding planner frantically checking tomorrow's timeline, the curious stares from 50 well-dressed guests. I stood there, Cheryl Bell, 55 years old, my hands still outstretched toward the seating chart I'd been trying to discuss with my daughter. The chart where I'd simply suggested, moving Grandma Rose to a table farther from the band, just so her hearing aids wouldn't screech during the reception. "Autumn," I said quietly, keeping my voice level despite the tremor in my chest. "Maybe we should step outside and talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about." My daughter's voice cracked on the last word, her face contorted with a rage that seemed so disproportionate to my simple request. Autumn was 29 years old, a successful attorney, beautiful in her rehearsal dinner dress that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. And she was looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "I was just thinking of Grandma Rose's comfort," I began, but Autumn cut me off with a sharp gesture. "Stop. Just stop." Her voice rose, drawing every eye in the room. "This is my wedding. Mine. Not yours. Not Grandma's. Mine." Jameson Ortiz, my soon-to-be son-in-law, shifted uncomfortably beside her. His hand moved toward her arm, hesitant, but he said nothing. Behind him, his mother Diana pressed her linen napkin to her lips, her eyes gleaming with something that looked less like concern and more like vindication. "Autumn, sweetheart." I tried again, painfully aware of the growing audience. Margaret, the wedding planner, had frozen mid-step. The catering manager stood motionless with a tray of champagne flutes. Even the string quartet in the corner had stopped tuning their instruments. "What's best?" Autumn laughed, and there was no humor in it. "What's best would be if you just disappeared." The room tilted slightly. I felt my fingers go numb. "Seriously, Mom." Her voice dropped to something colder, more deliberate. "If you really want to give me a wedding present, just disappear from my life. I am so sick of apologizing for you to Jameson's family." Someone gasped. I'm not sure who. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the kitchen sounds from beyond the dining room seemed to stop. Diana Ortiz's eyes widened with theatrical shock, but I caught the corner of her mouth, just a flicker, curve upward. Richard Ortiz, Jameson's father, set down his wineglass with careful precision, his face unreadable. "Autumn." Jameson finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we should—" "No, Jameson, I'm done pretending." Autumn shook off his hand, her diamond engagement ring catching the chandelier light. "Do you know what your mother asked me yesterday? She asked if my mom would be comfortable at the country club, or if she'd feel out of place, like you're some kind of charity case we're including out of obligation." The words landed like physical blows. I absorbed them with a strange, floating detachment. After 29 years of single motherhood, of double shifts at the diner and the hospital, of wearing clothes from Goodwill so Autumn could wear Nordstrom, of driving a 15-year-old Honda so she could have the newest iPhone, I was being discussed like I was an embarrassing relative to be tolerated. "I see," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. "And what did you tell Diana?" Autumn's face flushed red, but she said nothing. Her silence was louder than any words could have been. "Autumn has been very gracious about including everyone," Diana interjected smoothly, her country club poise unshakable. "We simply want tomorrow to go perfectly for both families." Both families. As if my family, just me and elderly Grandma Rose, were somehow comparable to the Ortiz clan with their old money and their legacy admissions to Duke University and their summer house in Martha's Vineyard. "It will be perfect," I assured her, producing a smile that cost me everything. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I need some air." I walked out of that dining room with my back straight and my head high, feeling the weight of 50 pairs of eyes burning into my spine. I'd waitressed for 15 years. I knew how to keep my composure when people were watching. It wasn't until I reached the ladies' lounge, with its velvet chairs and ornate mirrors, that I let myself sink into a seat. My hands were shaking. I stared at my reflection in the gilt-edged mirror. A woman with silver-streaked brown hair cut in a practical bob because I trimmed it myself every 6 weeks. I was wearing a dress from Macy's clearance rack. Navy blue, simple, appropriate. I'd spent 2 hours picking it out, trying on a dozen options, wanting to look nice without embarrassing my daughter. Apparently I'd failed. You're the worst mother anyone could have. Was I? I thought back over the years. The Halloween costumes I'd sewn by hand because we couldn't afford store-bought ones. The countless school lunches packed with handwritten notes tucked inside. The college care packages sent every month, filled with her favorite snacks and little gifts I could barely afford. The quiet support through her first heartbreak, her law school stress, her bar exam anxiety. I'd made mistakes. God knows I'd made mistakes. All parents do. But the worst mother anyone could have? My phone buzzed. A text from Autumn. Where did you go? Planner needs to discuss your entrance timing. No apology, no acknowledgement of the words that were still echoing in my head. Just impatience that I wasn't fulfilling my assigned role in her perfect production. I stared at that text for a long moment. Then I typed back. Not feeling well. Going home to rest. Everything will be fine tomorrow. But as I sat there in that elegant lounge with its crystal sconces and imported tile, I found myself thinking about the house across town. The beautiful colonial on Maple Avenue where Autumn and Jameson lived. The house that had belonged to my father before he died 5 years ago. The house he'd left to me. I'd let them move in 2 years ago, planning to sign over the deed as a wedding gift. A fresh start without the burden of a mortgage. Autumn had never questioned this arrangement, had never asked about ownership or property taxes or insurance, all of which I'd been quietly paying. She'd simply accepted it, the way she'd accepted everything I'd ever given her, with entitlement. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, scrolled through the transactions from the past 2 years, the wedding deposits, the rehearsal dinner I'd paid for tonight, the dress alterations, the upgraded floral arrangements, the premium bar package, $78,452. My retirement account, systematically emptied for a wedding where the bride's family was supposed to contribute just a token amount. At least that's what Autumn had told the Ortiz family. I opened another app, pulled up old emails, found the one from 2 years ago, Autumn's law school loan satisfaction letter. The one that had somehow convinced everyone that Jameson's father, Richard, had generously paid off her student debt. $213,450. My father's life insurance money. The nest egg he'd left me. Every penny of it gone to ensure my daughter graduated debt-free. And she'd let the Ortiz family believe it was their generosity, not mine. I sat there for a long time, adding up numbers in my head. The private school tuition when the public schools weren't good enough, the SAT tutors, the study abroad program, the emergency credit card that somehow always had a balance, the kitchen renovation in her house last year, $45,000 that she'd called a loan but had never once mentioned repaying. My phone buzzed again. Mom, seriously, where are you? I looked at my reflection one more time. At the woman who'd spent 29 years putting her daughter's needs first, who'd worked herself to exhaustion, who'd sacrificed her youth, her career ambitions, her chance at love after Autumn's father left. The woman who'd been called the worst mother anyone could have. Dame de tu vida, I whispered to my reflection, testing how the words felt in my mouth. Disappear from my life. My father had been an accountant. He'd taught me something important when I was young. People can argue with your words, Cheryl Bug, but they can't argue with numbers. I opened my laptop bag. I'd brought it to review the final payment to the caterer, and pulled out my computer. Opened a new document. Started typing. If Autumn wanted me to disappear from her life, I could do that. But first, I was going to give her exactly what she'd asked for, a wedding gift she'd never forget. It was 3:15 in the morning when I finally closed my laptop. My kitchen table was covered with printed documents, sorted into neat folders. My father would have been proud of the organization. Folder 1, red, wedding expenses, every contract, every receipt, every payment confirmation, $78,452.36. Folder 2, blue, education expenses, tuition payments, loan satisfactions, housing deposits, textbook receipts, $247,000, give or take. Folder 3, green, property documents, the deed to the Maple Avenue house, still in my name, the property tax payments I'd made for 5 years, the insurance premiums, the $45,000 kitchen renovation loan. I stared at the folders, my eyes gritty from lack of sleep and too many tears. My phone showed 23 missed calls, 17 from Autumn, 3 from Jameson, 2 from Margaret the wedding planner, 1 from Grandma Rose. I listened to Rose's voicemail first, my father's mother, 86 years old and sharp as ever. "Cheryl, sweetheart, your neighbor Alice called me. Said she saw you come home early from the rehearsal dinner looking upset. I don't know what happened, but I know my granddaughter can be difficult. Call me when you can. I love you." The only person who'd checked if I was okay, not my daughter, my dead husband's mother. I made my first call at exactly 7 a.m., the moment I knew he'd be at his desk. "Daniel Fitzgerald." "Daniel, it's Cheryl Bell." A pause. "Cheryl, isn't today the wedding? Is everything— I need to sell the Maple Avenue property, immediately." Silence on the other end. Then, "Cheryl, what's happened?" "Plans change," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "The house is still in my name, correct?" "Yes, absolutely. Your father left it to you without conditions. His note about transferring it to Autumn was just a suggestion. Legally, you're free to— How fast can you sell it?" Another pause. I could hear Daniel's chair creaking as he sat back. "In this market, if you're willing to accept a reasonable offer, I have investors who buy with cash, minimal contingencies. We could close in 48 hours. But Cheryl, this seems— Perfect. Make the calls. I'll come to your office at noon to sign whatever's necessary." "Cheryl, as your attorney and your father's friend, I have to ask, are you sure about this?" I looked at the 3 folders on my table, at the mother of the bride dress hanging in its plastic garment bag, at the handcrafted guest book I'd spent 3 weeks making, with personalized notes for each guest. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. My second call was harder. "Margaret Willis, Pinehurst Events." "Margaret, it's Cheryl Bell." "Oh, Mrs. Bell, I was just about to call you. We have a small issue with the— Margaret, I need you to cancel the wedding." Dead silence. "I'm sorry, what?" "Cancel it. All of it. The venue, the caterers, the flowers, the music, the photographer. Everything." "Mrs. Bell?" Margaret's voice had gone up an octave. "The wedding is in 7 hours. That's not— We can't possibly— Check Section 7, Paragraph 3 of our contract. As the financially responsible party, I'm authorized to cancel with appropriate vendor compensation." I heard papers rustling frantically. Then, "But the cancellation fees alone will be— I'm prepared to pay them. All of them. Please begin making the calls. Mrs. Bell, the bride, your daughter, she'll be devastated." I thought about Autumn's face last night, her contempt, her rage, her public humiliation of me in front of 50 people. "You're the worst mother anyone could have." "I'm sure she will be," I agreed quietly. "Nevertheless, please proceed. I'll forward payment for the cancellation fees by 9 a.m. After I hung up, I sat very still for a moment. Then I made 7 more calls. The florist, the photographer, the DJ, the string quartet, the transportation company, the cake designer, the hair and makeup team. With each call, I calmly identified myself as the contracting party, referenced the relevant cancellation clause, and authorized whatever payments were necessary. By 9:30, I had systematically dismantled every component of the $78,000 wedding that was supposed to happen in less than 6 hours. My phone was ringing constantly now. I ignored it all. There was one more call to make, the hardest one. "Hello? Grandma Rose, it's me." Cheryl, thank God. Are you all right? What's happening? Autumn called me at 7 this morning, absolutely hysterical, saying something about, the wedding's been canceled. I heard her sharp intake of breath. Oh, sweetheart, what happened? She told me to disappear from her life, Rose, in front of everyone. Called me the worst mother anyone could have. A long silence. Then, in a voice full of steel, that ungrateful little... Rose, no, don't you defend her. I love that girl, but she's become someone I don't recognize. Someone selfish and cruel. And if she said that to you, in public... I heard her exhale slowly. Then you're doing exactly what you should do. You're not angry with me? Angry? Cheryl, I'm proud of you. It's about damn time you put yourself first. My eyes filled with tears. I'm leaving town, Rose, right after I finish what I need to do. Where will you go? The coast, North Carolina maybe, somewhere I can see the ocean. Good. Her voice was firm. You've been landlocked long enough. Go find yourself some peace, Cheryl Bug. Only 2 people had ever called me that. My father and his mother. Will you be okay without me? Rose laughed, warm and genuine. Child, I survived the Depression and buried 2 husbands. I'll survive you finally taking care of yourself. Now go, and call me when you get there. After we hung up, I looked around my small kitchen. At the house I'd bought 20 years ago, a modest 3-bedroom in a neighborhood that was nice but not fancy. I'd raised Autumn here alone after her father decided fatherhood was too constraining for his lifestyle. Autumn had been 6 years old when David Morrison walked out. I'd worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. Waitressing during the day, nursing assistant at night. I'd slept 4 hours if I was lucky, and I'd told myself it was worth it. That I was teaching Autumn about sacrifice and love and commitment. What I'd actually taught her, I realize now, was that my needs didn't matter. That she could take and take and take, and I would always give more. Well, no more. I showered, dressed in jeans and a comfortable sweater, and packed a bag with practical clothes. I left the mother of the bride dress hanging in its plastic, like a ghost of the person I'd been trying to be. At 11:30, my doorbell began ringing. Insistent, desperate. I looked through the peephole. Autumn. For a moment, I considered not answering. But no, she deserved to hear this from me, not from vendors and venues and the cold reality of canceled dreams. I opened the door. My daughter stood on my porch in designer yoga pants and an expensive sweatshirt, her face blotchy and swollen from crying, her eyes wild with panic. Mom, what the hell? She pushed past me into the house. I've been calling you all night. The venue called Jameson's parents saying everything's canceled, and Margaret won't answer my calls. And the photographer texted saying... She stopped abruptly, seeing my packed bag in the hallway. My casual clothes. Why aren't you dressed? We need to be at the venue in an hour for hair and... There is no venue, I said quietly. I canceled the wedding. Autumn froze. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's not funny. I'm not joking. She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Then she pulled out her phone, started frantically dialing. I'm calling Margaret right now and fixing whatever. There's nothing to fix. I made the calls myself this morning. Every vendor has been canceled and compensated. Her face drained of all color. You what? But it's my wedding. You can't. Actually, I can. I gestured toward the kitchen. Come look. I don't know why she followed me. Maybe she was too shocked to do anything else. We walked into my kitchen, where 3 folders sat on the table like evidence at a trial. What is this? She whispered. The truth. I opened the red folder first. This contains every contract, every receipt, every payment confirmation for the wedding. Total, $78,452, all paid from my retirement account. Autumn's eyes darted over the papers, her breathing shallow. But Jameson's parents, they contributed nothing, I finished for her, despite what you let them believe. Her face flushed red. I never said they were paying. They just assumed, and it was easier to let them think I was too poor to give my daughter a proper wedding. Silence. I opened the blue folder. Your education. Private elementary school when the public schools weren't good enough, $32,000. SAT tutoring, $8,000. Study abroad program, $12,000. Undergraduate degree, $97,000. Law school, $213,450. I placed a loan satisfaction letter on top. The student loans that everyone thinks Jameson's father paid off? That was me. I liquidated my father's life insurance money. Every single penny. Autumn was shaking her head slowly, like she could deny reality through sheer will. No, Mr. Ortiz told Jameson he lied. Or Jameson lied to you, or you lied to yourself. Does it matter which? I opened the green folder last, pulled out a property deed. And this, the house you and Jameson live in. Read the owner's name. She picked it up with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the document once, twice, 3 times. This says your name. Because it's my house. It always was. Granddad Floyd left it to me when he died 5 years ago. I let you move in, planning to transfer it as a wedding gift. So it's mine. I was going to. Past tense. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Through the front window I saw Jameson's car in my driveway, and behind it, the Ortiz family's Mercedes SUV. You should let them in, I said calmly. They deserve to hear this, too. I opened the door to find not just Jameson, but his entire family. Jameson Ortiz stood closest, his usually composed face creased with confusion and worry. Behind him, his mother Diana had somehow managed to maintain her country club perfection despite the crisis. Hair salon smooth, makeup impeccable, designer cardigan draped just so over her shoulders. Richard Ortiz, Jameson's father, stood tall with his attorney posture, assessing the situation with sharp eyes. And there was Blake, Jameson's younger brother, looking uncomfortable in gym clothes like he'd been dragged along against his will. Mrs. Bell, Jameson began, his voice careful, measured. There seems to be some confusion about the wedding. The venue called my mother saying everything had been canceled, but that can't be right. Can we please come in? I interrupted gently. Autumn's in the kitchen. You should all hear this together. Diana's eyes swept over me, jeans, sweater, no makeup, and I saw her register the wrongness of it. The mother of the bride should be in curlers and a robe by now, sipping mimosas while getting ready for photos. Instead, I looked like I was preparing to run errands. Cheryl, Diana said, her voice dripping with forced warmth. I'm sure whatever's happened, we can resolve it. There are 200 guests, many who've traveled quite far. Please, I gestured toward the kitchen. Come in. They filed past me, Diana's perfume leaving a trail of expensive floral notes. I followed them into my small kitchen where Autumn stood frozen by the table, still clutching the property deed in her trembling hands. Autumn, sweetheart, what's going on? Jameson moved toward her immediately, reaching for her hands. Why is everyone saying the wedding's canceled? My mother, Autumn's voice cracked. She canceled everything. That can't be right. Diana's laugh was brittle. Surely there's been some miscommunication. No miscommunication. I remained standing by the doorway, arms crossed. I contacted every vendor between 7 and 9:30 this morning. Venue, catering, flowers, music, photography. Everything's been canceled. I've authorized payment for all cancellation fees. Richard Ortiz's eyes narrowed. Mrs. Bell, with all due respect, you can't simply cancel a wedding hours before the ceremony. There are contracts, obligations, which I fulfilled. I kept my voice level. Every contract was in my name, with my signature, paid with my credit card. As the financially responsible party, I had the legal right to cancel with appropriate compensation. But why? Blake spoke up, his voice genuinely bewildered. What happened? I looked at my daughter, at her red, swollen eyes, her designer clothes, her diamond engagement ring catching the morning light streaming through my modest kitchen window. Why don't you tell them, Autumn? Tell them what you said to me last night, in front of 50 people. Autumn's face went from pale to scarlet. Mom, I was upset. I didn't mean, tell them. This is ridiculous, Diana interjected. Whatever family squabble happened at the rehearsal dinner, surely we can move past it for the sake of… She told me to disappear from her life. My voice cut through Diana's words like a knife through silk. She called me the worst mother anyone could have, publicly, and said she was sick of apologizing for me to your family. The kitchen went silent. Jameson's hand dropped from Autumn's arm. Autumn, you didn't… I was stressed. Autumn's voice rose, defensive. The wedding, everything being perfect, and Mom was trying to change the seating chart at the last minute. I suggested moving Grandma Rose farther from the band, I said quietly, so her hearing aids wouldn't screech during the reception. Blake made a small sound, something between a laugh and a gasp. Diana's perfectly composed face finally showed a crack, a flicker of uncertainty. Richard cleared his throat. Mrs. Bell, I understand emotions run high before weddings, perhaps with some distance and perspective. Let me give you some perspective, Mr. Ortiz. I walked to the kitchen table, placed my hand on the red folder. This is the truth about this wedding, about my daughter's life, about the lies you've all been living. Lies? Diana's voice turned sharp. What lies? I opened the red folder, spread the contents across my kitchen table. Contracts, receipts, payment confirmations, bank statements. The wedding, I said, $78,452. Every deposit, every upgrade, every single expense. All paid from my retirement account. Richard picked up a document, his attorney's eyes scanning quickly. His eyebrows rose. This venue contract, it lists you as the primary financial… Yes. But Autumn told us… Diana's voice faltered. What did she tell you? I asked, looking directly at my daughter. Autumn's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. She told us, Jameson said slowly, his voice confused, that you could only contribute a small amount, that we were covering the major expenses. We? I repeated. My parents and I. We thought… Autumn showed me a budget spreadsheet. It had my dad listed as primary financial contributor. I looked at Richard. Did you contribute anything to this wedding? No, he admitted. But I assumed, we all assumed, based on conversations with Autumn, that I couldn't afford to give my daughter a proper wedding, I finished. That you were being generous by helping out the poor single mother. Diana's face had gone pale beneath her carefully applied blush. Blake spoke up again, his voice uncertain. Wait, if Mrs. Bell paid for everything, then who paid for Autumn's law school loans? Everyone turned to look at him. What are you talking about? Jameson asked. Last year at Christmas, Autumn told me Dad had paid off her student loans as a graduation gift. She said that's why she was able to save for the down payment on the house. The house. I opened the green folder, pulled out the property deed, and placed it in the center of the table like a trump card. Speaking of the house, I said, why don't you tell them about that, Autumn? Mom, please, tell them who owns it. Jameson picked up the deed before Autumn could stop him. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, realization, shock. This is in your mother's name, he said, looking up at Autumn. Our house. The house we've been living in for 2 years. You told me it was your inheritance. It was going to be, but it wasn't. Richard's lawyer voice was precise as a scalpel. You represented fiction as fact. I never technically said, you showed me real estate documents. Jameson's voice cracked. When we were looking at condos in Beacon Hill, you said we should live in your house until we could afford something better. I asked if we should contribute to the mortgage. You said there was no mortgage because you owned it outright. I was going to inherit it. Eventually, I interrupted. When I decided the time was right, which I never did, I opened the blue folder, the largest of the 3. Education expenses. Years and years of receipts, tuition payments, loan documents. And the student loans? Blake pressed. Did Dad really pay those off? No, I said. I did. $213,450. I liquidated the life insurance money Granddad Floyd left me, the money I was supposed to retire on. I placed the loan satisfaction letter on top of the pile. The money that everyone thought came from Richard's generosity? That was me. Diana sank into one of my kitchen chairs, for once at a loss for words. Richard picked up the loan document, studied it, set it down carefully. Autumn, is this true? Autumn's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks, taking her mascara with them. You don't understand. You were all so perfect. Diana with her charity galas and her junior league friends. Blake with his trust fund. Jameson talking about Martha's Vineyard and summers in Europe. I felt like I wasn't good enough. So you erased me, I said softly. Made yourself into someone whose mother wasn't an embarrassment. That's not... Autumn choked on the words. You told Diana I'd feel out of place at the country club. You apologized to Jameson's colleagues for my humble background. You've spent 2 years rewriting our entire history because you were ashamed of where you came from. Is this true? Diana asked, and for the first time she sounded genuinely shaken. Autumn didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her face said everything. Jameson stood abruptly, ran his hands through his hair. I need to understand. The house we've been living in, the education you claim to have scholarships for, the wedding we thought we were planning together. It was all lies? Not lies exactly, Autumn said desperately. More like letting people believe what they wanted to believe. That's called lying by omission, Richard said quietly. I teach first-year law students about that. Blake laughed, a short, bitter sound. God, I've been living in my parents' guest house, trying to save money, while you two were living rent-free in a house worth what? $500,000? 600,000, I corrected, according to the appraisal I had done yesterday. You had it appraised? Autumn's voice was small. Why? Because I'm selling it. The words dropped into the kitchen like stones into still water, creating ripples of shock. You're... what? Jameson whispered. The sale closes Monday morning. Cash buyer, no contingencies. You both have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to remove your belongings. Anything left behind will be donated. You can't do this, Autumn cried. That's our home. All our things, our life together. Your life built on my money and my sacrifices, I said, which you've taken for granted and been ashamed of. So yes, I can do this, and I am. Diana found her voice. Cheryl, surely we can discuss some sort of arrangement. Richard and I would be happy to reimburse you for the wedding expenses. I don't want your money, Diana. Then what do you want? Richard asked, his lawyer brain trying to find an angle, a negotiation. I looked around at all of them, at Autumn, still crying, at Jameson, looking like his entire world had shifted, at the Ortiz parents, finally understanding that their assumptions about the poor single mother had been completely wrong. I want you to understand something, I said. For 29 years, I've put Autumn's needs first. Her education, her happiness, her comfort, her dreams. I worked double shifts so she could take dance lessons. I drove a 15-year-old car so she could have new clothes. I ate ramen so she could eat steak. I wore Goodwill so she could wear Nordstrom. My voice didn't waver. And last night, after nearly 3 decades of sacrifice, she looked me in the eye and told me I was the worst mother anyone could have, that she wished I would disappear from her life. I picked up my purse from the counter. So I'm giving her exactly what she asked for, a life without me in it. Where are you going? Autumn asked through her tears. That's no longer your concern. Mom, please. The house sale closes Monday at 10 a.m. My attorney, Daniel Fitzgerald, will handle the paperwork. The proceeds will be deposited into my account. Half of it I'll use to start over somewhere new. The other half I'm donating to a foundation that helps single mothers pursue higher education. Diana made a small sound. Surprise? Admiration? I couldn't tell and didn't care. You're just leaving? Jameson asked. Just like that? Not just like that, I corrected. This has been building for years. I just finally admitted it to myself last night. I walked toward the door, then paused, turned back. Autumn, There's one more thing. Daniel Fitzgerald has some information for you. About your father. The real story of why he left. I think you're old enough now to know the truth. Autumn's eyes widened. What truth? Dad he couldn't handle being a father. Ask Daniel, I said, or don't. That's your choice. I opened the door, stepped into the bright October sunlight. Behind me, I heard Autumn calling my name, her voice breaking on each syllable. But I didn't turn around. I'd spent 29 years turning around, going back, giving more. Not anymore. I got into my car, the newer one I'd finally bought myself last year, after Autumn graduated, and I thought I could afford it, and drove away from the house where I'd raised my daughter alone. In my rearview mirror, I saw them all standing in my doorway. Autumn collapsed against Jameson, Diana with her hand over her mouth, Richard with his arms crossed, already in damage control mode. I turned the corner, and they disappeared from view. I drove straight to Daniel Fitzgerald's office, a converted Victorian in the historic district downtown. Daniel had been my father's best friend, his attorney, and the executor of his will. He was 63 now, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Cheryl, he stood when his secretary showed me in. I have the paperwork ready for the house sale, but I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about this? I sat down in the leather chair across from his desk. Daniel, can I tell you something? When Dad died 5 years ago, his last words to me were, take care of yourself now. Not take care of Autumn. Take care of yourself. I pulled out my phone, showed him the hotel reservation in Wilmington. I'm driving to the coast this afternoon. I'm going to look at beach cottages, small ones, just for me. Daniel smiled, the first real smile I'd seen all morning. Floyd would be proud. He worried you'd sacrifice yourself into nothing. He was right to worry. I signed the papers he placed before me. Authorization for the sale, power of attorney so he could complete the closing without me, documents transferring the title clean and clear to the new owners. There's something else, Daniel said when we'd finished. He pulled a worn envelope from his desk drawer. I found this when I was organizing Floyd's papers after he died. It's addressed to you, but he left specific instructions. Give to Cheryl only if Autumn breaks her heart. My hands shook as I took the envelope. Dad's handwriting on the front. Cheryl Bug. He knew, I whispered. Floyd always knew, Daniel said gently. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge? I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, several pages in my father's precise script. Cheryl Bug. If you're reading this, Autumn has broken your heart. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I wish I could have prevented this. You were always too soft with her. After David left, you overcompensated. Tried to be both parents. Gave her everything she wanted to make up for everything he took away. But abundance without accountability creates entitlement. You gave her so much, she learned to expect everything. I'm leaving you the Maple House. Not Autumn. You. Because you'll need something that's yours alone. Don't give it to her until she proves she understands its value. And if she never proves it, then sell it. Take the money. Start over somewhere sunny where people don't know your history. Find out who Cheryl Bell is when she's not Autumn's mother. You deserve that discovery, Bug. There's one more thing. In my safety deposit box at First National, box 247, you'll find information about David Morrison, the real story of why he left. I've kept it secret to protect you both, but if things have deteriorated this badly, Autumn needs to understand where some of her tendencies come from. Not as an excuse, as an explanation. Love always, Dad. I folded the letter carefully, tucked it in my purse. The safety deposit box? I'll have someone from the bank bring it here this afternoon, Daniel said. But Cheryl? Floyd also left a second letter. Addressed to Autumn, with very specific instructions about when to give it to her. What kind of instructions? Give to Autumn only after Cheryl has started her new life. Daniel studied my face. He wanted you free first, before she received his, let's call it his final lesson. I thought about that. About my father's wisdom. His ability to see patterns I'd been too close to notice. Keep it, I decided. If Autumn comes looking for information about her father, give her what you find in the safety deposit box. But the letter? Hold on to it. I'll tell you when I'm ready for her to have it. And if she asks? Tell her it exists. Tell her it's waiting for her when she's ready to truly understand what she's done. But Daniel? I stood, gathered my purse. Don't make it easy for her. She's had everything easy her whole life. That's part of the problem. I left Daniel's office feeling lighter than I had in years. Got in my car, programmed the GPS for Wilmington, North Carolina. 3.5 hours away, a beach town I'd always wanted to visit but never had time for. My phone rang as I merged onto the highway. Autumn's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Jameson. Voicemail. Again. Diana. Blocked. The fourth call was from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, curious. Mrs. Bell, this is Blake Ortiz. Blake. I wanted to say I think you're really brave. What you did this morning. And I'm sorry. For my family assuming things about you. For not questioning what Autumn told us. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Blake. For what it's worth, Jameson's pretty messed up right now. He really didn't know about any of it. I believe that. He's a good guy, Mrs. Bell, just weak when it comes to family pressure, and Autumn knew how to use that. That's not your fault. Maybe not, but I should have seen it. We all should have. He paused. Where are you going? Somewhere I can see the ocean every morning. Good, Blake said firmly. You deserve that. After we hung up, I drove in silence for a while, watching the landscape change from suburbs to farms to pine forests. The farther I got from home, the easier it became to breathe. My phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Mrs. Bell, this is Margaret Willis. I just wanted to say, I've been planning weddings for 15 years. I've seen bridezillas and monster mothers-in-law, but I've never seen a bride speak to her mother the way Autumn spoke to you last night. You did the right thing. I hope you find peace. Then another text, from a number I did recognize. Alice from next door. Rose called me. Said you've left town. Good for you, honey. That girl needed a wake-up call. Come back when you're ready. Your house will be waiting. And finally, one from Grandma Rose herself. Called the hotel. You better have booked an ocean view room or I'm calling them back myself. Love you, Cheryl Bug. Make your daddy proud. I pulled over at a rest stop. Let myself cry. But these weren't tears of pain anymore. They were tears of relief, of liberation, of choosing, for the first time in 29 years, to put myself first. I'd given Autumn everything. My youth. My money, my dreams, my dignity. The last gift I could give her was the truth, that actions have consequences, that respect must be earned, not demanded, that a mother's love is not infinite if it's constantly taken for granted. And the first gift I could give myself, permission to walk away. I got back in my car, merged onto the highway, and drove toward the coast, toward sunrise over water, toward a future I got to choose, toward the life I should have built 29 years ago, before I learned to sacrifice everything for someone who would never appreciate it. The GPS showed 2 hours and 30 minutes to Wilmington. I turned up the radio and drove toward my new beginning. The first thing I noticed about Wilmington was the light. It was different from inland North Carolina, softer somehow, filtered through salt air and maritime haze. As I crossed the bridge into the historic district, the Cape Fear River stretched out below me, wide and serene, flowing toward the Atlantic beyond. I'd booked a room at a small inn on the riverfront, the kind of place with rocking chairs on the porch and complimentary sweet tea in the lobby. The owner, a weathered woman in her 70s named Patricia, checked me in with minimal questions. First time in Wilmington? She asked, handing me an old-fashioned brass key. Yes. Running from something or toward something? I smiled, surprised by her directness. Both, I think. Patricia nodded like this was the most sensible answer in the world. Room 3 has the best sunrise view. I put you there. Breakfast is at 7, but coffee's available at 5:30 for early risers. That night, I sat on my small balcony overlooking the river and finally listened to my voicemails. 17 from Autumn. I deleted them without listening. 3 from Jameson. I listened to the first one. Mrs. Bell, it's Jameson. I don't know what to say. I didn't know about any of it. The money, the house, how Autumn portrayed you to my family. I'm trying to process all of this. Autumn she's not doing well. She's staying with my parents. I don't know what we are anymore. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for not seeing it, for not defending you last night, for everything. His voice cracked on the last word. I felt a pang of sympathy for him, caught in the middle of something he hadn't created but would have to navigate. But it wasn't my job to make it easier for him. Not anymore. There was one more voicemail from a number with a local area code. Mrs. Bell, this is Sandra Torres from Coastal Carolina Properties. Your mother-in-law Rose called me. Formidable woman, by the way. She said you're looking for a fresh start by the ocean. I'd love to help. I have 3 properties that might interest you. Call me when you're ready. And Mrs. Bell, Rose told me a little about your situation. Good for you. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. I saved that one. The next morning, I met Sandra at a coffee shop in Carolina Beach. She was 62, with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, laugh lines around her eyes, and the weathered complexion of someone who spent considerable time outdoors. You must be Cheryl. She stood, extended her hand. Rose has told me so much about you. All good things, I hope. Sandra's smile was warm. She said you've been through hell and need somewhere peaceful to land. That I can definitely do. We sat down with our coffees, and Sandra pulled out a folder with property listings. Rose mentioned you're looking for something modest but sturdy. Ocean access. Low maintenance. Within budget after your house sale closes Monday. That's right. Before we look at houses, can I tell you something? Sandra leaned back, studied me. 20 years ago, I was in Ohio, married 28 years, 3 kids, 2 of them wonderful. One who blamed me for everything wrong in his life. I set down my coffee cup. I spent years trying to fix him, save him, prove I was a good mother. Therapy, money, second chances, third chances. Nothing worked. And one day, my husband, my ex-husband now, said I had to choose. The family or this one child who was dragging us all down. What did you do? I chose myself, Sandra said simply. Left the marriage, left Ohio, moved here where nobody knew my history. My difficult son hasn't spoken to me in 15 years. And you know what? I'm okay. More than okay. I'm happy. She pulled out 3 property listings. I'm telling you this because house hunting isn't just about square footage and good bones. It's about finding a place where you can rebuild yourself. So let's find you that place. The first house was a renovated cottage in Carolina Beach, 2 blocks from the ocean. Modern, clean, move-in ready. It had gleaming white cabinets and stainless steel appliances and absolutely no soul. It's nice, I said diplomatically. But it doesn't feel like yours, Sandra finished. It feels like a hotel. I thought so too. Next one. The second property was a luxury townhouse with direct ocean views. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a balcony overlooking the Atlantic, a community pool, and clubhouse. It's beautiful, I admitted, but those HOA rules? I'd read through the packet. No wind chimes, no personal decorations on balconies. Quiet hours strictly enforced. I just left a situation where I had to follow someone else's rules. I don't want another. Sandra grinned. You're going to love the third one. We drove north to Wrightsville Beach, then turned onto a narrow road that wound through maritime forest. Live oaks draped with Spanish moss created a natural canopy overhead, filtering the afternoon sun into dappled patterns. At the end of the lane sat a weathered blue cottage with a wraparound porch facing a tranquil expanse of water. It's not oceanfront, Sandra said as we parked. This is the Sound side, the intracoastal waterway. The Atlantic is about half a mile walk that way. But this, she gestured toward the shimmering water. This offers something different, steadier, more peaceful. I stepped out of the car and felt something click into place. The cottage itself was small, maybe 1,200 square feet. The paint was faded, the porch boards worn smooth by decades of footsteps. A hand-painted sign hung beside the door. The Blue Cottage. But it was the feeling of the place, the way the afternoon light danced on the water, the gentle sound of waves lapping against the private dock, the great blue heron standing motionless in the shallows, hunting its dinner with infinite patience. The owner is an elderly woman named Patricia Walsh, Sandra explained as we walked toward the house. She's moving to assisted living. Her kids live out of state and want a clean, simple sale. She's owned it 40 years, raised her family here. Inside, the cottage showed its age. The kitchen dated from the early 2000s. The hardwood floors were worn but solid. The furniture was a mismatched collection of pieces that had clearly been loved. But the light, God, the light. Every window framed a view of water or trees. The primary bedroom had a picture window positioned perfectly to watch the sunrise. The living room opened onto the porch through French doors that probably should have been replaced a decade ago, but had a character that new doors never would. On the kitchen counter, I found a handwritten note. Dear future owner, my husband Tom and I bought this cottage in 1984 with money we'd saved for 10 years. We weren't rich, but we were happy here. Our 3 children learned to fish off that dock. We had family dinners on the porch every summer evening. Tom died here 5 years ago, peacefully, watching the sunrise. I hope whoever buys this house fills it with as much joy as we did. It deserves a second act. Warmly, Patricia Walsh. I read it twice, my eyes blurring with tears. Sandra, I said quietly, I want to make an offer. 2 days later, the offer was accepted. Patricia had actually reduced her asking price when Sandra explained, with careful discretion, that I was starting over after a difficult family situation. Tell her the house will be loved, Patricia had said through her daughter. That's worth more than an extra $10,000. The closing was scheduled for the following Friday, 6 days away. I spent those days in a strange liminal space, neither here nor there. My old life was packed in storage. My new life was still an abstract concept. I walked the beaches, ate fresh seafood, and slowly felt the constant tension in my shoulders begin to ease. On Wednesday afternoon, Daniel Fitzgerald called. Cheryl, I have the contents from your father's safety deposit box. My heart rate picked up. And? You need to see this in person. Can you come to the office? I'm in Wilmington, 3 hours away. This is important enough to drive for. I made the drive the next morning, arriving at Daniel's office by 10 a.m. He ushered me into his private conference room where a worn leather folder sat on the table. Your father was thorough, Daniel said, opening it. Sometimes painfully so. Inside were newspaper clippings, private investigator reports, and official documents spanning years. The first clipping was from 2008, a small article in the local paper. Local man wanted in embezzlement case. David Morrison, 34, is wanted for questioning in connection with the theft of over $400,000 from Meridian Financial Services. Morrison, an accountant with the firm, disappeared 3 days ago along with his wife and 6-year-old daughter. Authorities believe he has fled the state. I stared at the article, my hands numb. Autumn and I were the wife and daughter mentioned here. Yes, but you didn't flee with him. He abandoned you 3 days after the embezzlement was discovered. Dad knew about this? Your father discovered the embezzlement before the company did. Daniel pulled out another document, a private investigator's report dated 2 weeks before David disappeared. Floyd had suspicions about David's spending, hired someone to look into it. When the investigator found evidence of the theft, Floyd confronted David privately. What happened? According to Floyd's notes, David neither confirmed nor denied anything. Just said, "You'll never see me again." 48 hours later, he was gone. I felt like the floor had shifted beneath me. So he didn't leave because he couldn't handle being a father. He left because he was running from the law. Yes. Daniel pulled out more papers. But there's more. Floyd tracked him, hired investigators. David created a new identity, Daniel Matthews, and settled in Phoenix. Look at this. He slid across a series of photographs. David, Daniel, older but recognizable, standing in front of a house with a woman and 2 children. The photos were dated 2015. He has another family, I whispered. A wife named Catherine. 2 children, Emma, born 2001, and Joshua, born 2003. According to the investigator's last report from 3 years ago, he's maintained steady employment as an accountant under his new identity. No further criminal activity detected. I studied the photos, trying to reconcile the man who'd abandoned his 6-year-old daughter with this suburban father at a school play, at a soccer game, at what looked like a birthday party. Why didn't Dad turn him in? He wanted to. Daniel pulled out a handwritten letter. But he was worried about the scandal affecting you and Autumn. A public trial, media attention, your daughter learning her father was a criminal. So Floyd made a different choice. What choice? He anonymously repaid the stolen money to Meridian Financial, $423,000 from his own accounts. I sat down heavily. That's why he didn't have more to leave me when he died. He spent his retirement savings protecting you from David's crimes. I thought about my father, dead 5 years now. His quiet generosity, his careful protection. The way he'd always watched Autumn with a mixture of love and concern. There's something else, Daniel said quietly. He pulled out another sealed envelope. This is the letter Floyd wrote to Autumn, the one I'm supposed to give her only after you've started your new life. What does it say? I don't know. It's sealed. But Floyd left instructions for me to read it to you first, if you want, to decide whether she should receive it. I thought about Autumn, about the voicemails I hadn't listened to, about Jameson's broken voice saying she's not doing well. Open it, I decided. Daniel broke the seal, unfolded several pages of my father's handwriting, and began to read. Autumn, if you're reading this, you've hurt your mother badly enough that she left. I'm not surprised. I saw this coming years ago. You inherited your father's charm and his selfishness. David Morrison could make anyone love him until they got close enough to realize he only loved himself. By now, you probably know the truth about why he left. Ask Daniel Fitzgerald about the embezzlement if he hasn't told you already. Your father wasn't a man who couldn't handle responsibility. He was a criminal who abandoned you to save himself. I could have exposed him, but I chose to protect you from that pain. Your mother made a different choice. She protected you by giving. Everything. Always. Too much. I watched her sacrifice her youth, her career, her happiness for you. And I watched you take it all as if it was your birthright, as if her love was infinite and therefore worthless. Here's what I never told her, because she wouldn't listen. You can't love someone into appreciating you. You can't sacrifice enough to earn respect. Respect is either given freely, or it's not respect at all. Your mother is one of the best people I've ever known. Kind, resilient, generous to a fault. If you can't see that, the problem isn't her. It's you. You have one chance to prove you understand what you've lost. 1. Here's what you need to do. 1. Go to therapy. Real therapy. Work on understanding why you needed to erase your mother to feel valuable. 2. Write her a letter. Handwritten, not typed, explaining what you understand now. Not apologizing. Understanding is deeper than apology. 3. Take responsibility for your patterns. The lying, the manipulation, the entitlement. They come from your father's DNA, but you've chosen to feed them. 4. Then wait. Let her decide if she wants contact. She's earned the right to that choice. If you can't do these things, leave her alone. She's earned her peace. And Autumn? The house, the money, the education, all of it came from her sacrifice. If you want to honor that sacrifice, stop taking. Start giving. Become someone worthy of the mother you were given. Your grandfather, Floyd Bell. Daniel finished reading. The conference room was silent, except for the ticking of an old clock on the wall. Should I give this to her? He asked finally. I thought about it. About Autumn crying in my kitchen. about the life she'd built on lies, about whether this letter would help her grow or just hurt her more. Not yet, I decided. Hold on to it. If she comes asking about her father, give her the information about David. The photos, the reports, all of it. She deserves to know her history. And the letter? Tell her it exists. Tell her Granddad Floyd left her something, but she can only have it when she's ready to truly understand what it means. Make her ask for it. Make her work for it. Daniel nodded slowly. Your father would approve of that. Maybe. I stood, gathered my purse. But I'm not doing it for Dad's approval. I'm doing it because Autumn has had everything handed to her whole life. This, understanding, growth, redemption, she needs to earn. I drove back to Wilmington that afternoon, my head full of revelations about David Morrison and his double life, about my father's quiet sacrifices, about the generational patterns of selfishness and escape. But I also thought about Patricia Walsh's note on the kitchen counter, about second acts and joy and houses that deserve to be loved, about choosing forward instead of backward. The closing on the blue cottage happened on Friday morning, smooth and simple. Patricia's daughter attended, representing her mother, and handed me a box of items Patricia wanted the cottage's new owner to have. She said you'd understand these better than strangers would, the daughter explained. Inside were shells collected from the beach, each one labeled with a date and a memory. Emma's first solo swim, 1992. Tom's birthday sunrise, 2001. Last family dinner before the kids went to college, 2005. A life, documented in shells. That night I sat on my new porch, my porch, watching the sun set over the sound. The water turned gold, then pink, then purple. A heron landed on my dock, the same heron I'd seen that first day, or maybe a different one. It didn't matter. It was patient and self-sufficient and beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Bell, it's Jameson. I know you probably won't respond. But I wanted you to know. Autumn went to Daniel Fitzgerald's office today. She asked about her father. Daniel told her about the embezzlement, the new identity, the half-siblings. She's processing it all. She also knows there's a letter from her grandfather. Daniel said she has to earn the right to read it. I think that's fair. I think maybe it's the first fair thing that's happened in this whole situation. I hope you're finding peace wherever you are. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. My first contact with anyone from my old life in over a week. Thank you for letting me know. I hope Autumn finds what she needs. I hope you both do. But that journey is yours now, not mine. Take care, Jameson. I hit send, then added his number to my blocked list. Not out of anger, out of completion. 3 days later, I got a handwritten letter. My name and new address in Autumn's distinctive script. The handwriting I'd helped her practice in 2nd grade. I held it for a full minute before opening it. Dear Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if I deserve for you to read it, but Granddad Floyd's instructions said to write you a letter, so I'm writing. I went to Daniel's office. I know about Dad now, about what he really did, why he really left, about my half-siblings in Phoenix I never knew existed. I've been thinking about patterns, about how I've spent 2 years erasing you, rewriting our history, being ashamed of where I came from. I think I was afraid that if people knew the truth, that you were a waitress and a nursing assistant, that we lived in a small house, that we didn't have money for fancy things, they'd see me as less than, as not good enough for Jameson, for his family, for the life I wanted. So I made you small to make myself big. I took everything you gave and pretended it came from somewhere else. Someone else. I'm starting therapy next week. Real therapy. Because I can see now that I've been doing exactly what Dad did. Running from the truth, creating a false identity, hurting people who loved me. I'm not writing this to ask you to come back. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm writing to say I understand now why you left, why you had to, and I'm writing to say thank you for everything you gave me, for walking away when I needed to learn this lesson, for the last gift, the gift of consequences. Jameson and I are in couples therapy too. We're living in his parents' guest house. We postponed the wedding indefinitely. We have a lot to figure out. I hope you're happy wherever you are. I hope you're doing all the things you couldn't do when you were too busy taking care of me. Maybe someday, not soon, but someday, we can talk. But only if you want to. I'm done demanding things from you. With love and understanding, I'm just beginning to find. Autumn, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in the box with Patricia's shells. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I was still figuring out who Cheryl Bell was when she wasn't Autumn's mother. When she wasn't sacrificing or giving or fixing. That discovery was going to take time. 6 months later, I was standing on my dock at sunrise, coffee in hand, watching the sky turn pink and gold over the Sound. This had become my morning ritual, up before dawn, out on the dock, greeting the day before the world demanded anything from me. My phone rang. Rose. Good morning, Cheryl Bug. Morning, Rose. You're up early. Old people don't sleep. You know that. She paused. I got a call from Autumn yesterday. My hand tightened on my coffee mug. Oh? She wanted to know if I'd seen you, if I knew how you were doing. I told her you were fine. Didn't tell her where you were. Figured that was your decision to make. Thank you. She's changed, Cheryl. I can hear it in her voice. She's doing the work. Therapy, reflection, all of it. That boy Jameson, too. He's standing up to his parents now, I hear. They're still together, taking it slow. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. She asked me to tell you something. Said she knows you might not read letters or listen to voicemails, but maybe I could pass it along. What is it? She said she finally read Granddad Floyd's letter. Daniel gave it to her last week after 6 months of therapy. She said she understands now, all of it. And she's not asking you to come back. She's just grateful you gave her the chance to grow up. I watched a heron land on the opposite bank, different from my regular visitor, smaller, younger. Rose, can I ask you something? Anything, honey. Do you think I did the right thing, leaving? Or was I just running away like David did? Rose was quiet for a moment, then, David ran from responsibility. You ran toward yourself. That's not the same thing at all. After we hung up, I sat on my dock for a long time, thinking about Autumn, about growth and second chances, and whether forgiveness was something I wanted to give. I didn't have answers yet, but for the first time in 29 years, I didn't feel guilty about not having them. That evening, Sandra Torres stopped by with 2 other women, Linda Martinez, a retired teacher, and Grace Thompson, who owned the bookstore downtown. We sat on my porch with iced tea and watched the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. Book club meets every other Thursday, Grace said. We're reading Educated this month, about family trauma and choosing yourself. You'd fit right in. I'd like that, I said. As they left, Linda squeezed my hand. You're doing good, Cheryl, building a life. That takes courage. After they'd gone, I sat alone on my porch, listening to the gentle lap of waves against my dock. My phone sat on the table beside me, Autumn's letter still unread on my voicemail, a decision still unmade. But I didn't feel pressure to make it. For the first time in my life, I had the luxury of time. Time to heal. Time to discover. Time to choose whether forgiveness was something I wanted to offer, or whether peace without reconciliation was enough. The blue cottage creaked gently in the evening breeze, settling into its foundations the way I was settling into mine. I'd given Autumn everything for 29 years. The last gift I'd given her was the truth, that love without respect is not love at all, that consequences teach what coddling never can. And the first gift I'd given myself? Permission to be enough, to be whole, to be mine. The heron flew past, heading home to its nest. The sky deepened to indigo. Stars emerged, one by one, infinite and patient. And I sat on my porch, in my house, in my life, and felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Complete.